Hello and welcome. In the world of Orthodox Judaism, there is one man known for publicly discussing intimate issues in a way that few would dare. He's now a media star to whom the emotionally troubled turn when their love life or personal relationships end up with problems. This week on One-on-One, meet the international best-selling author and broadcaster, Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. For this father of 9, it's all about family. Rabbi Shmuley Boteach is quite unique among sex and relationship therapists, if nothing else because he's so direct in his advice. Born in New York as one of 5 children, he admits that he suffered badly from the breakup of his own parents when he was just 7 years old. As a result, ever since he got married, he's made sure he works closely with his wife Debbie on raising their large family, teaching the youngsters the philosophy and rituals of Orthodox Judaism. Rabbi Shmuley's best-selling book, Kosher Sex, in 1999, brought him to the attention of the mainstream media, and before long he was hosting shows on radio and television. The rabbi followed up on the success of that book with a whole kosher series, tackling everything this unique love guru feels might help to break down barriers and build better relationships. Shmuley, it's a great opportunity to chat with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Now, you've been called the most famous rabbi in America. You've written, 1.5 dozen plus books, bestsellers. You've TV station shows, radio station shows, an A-list celebrity friend list, and you're actually a celebrity yourself. How does it complicate you being a man of the cloth, so to speak, a man of spirituality, and also being a celebrity at the same time?
First of all, you introducing me the way my Jewish mother might introduce me, but there's no truth to it. I'm not a celebrity at all. I really am a rabbi, and most of all, I'm a husband and I'm a father. We're sitting here in my living room, and I have 9 children to raise, thank God, so that's where most of my energies are devoted. To the extent that my work has gotten a little bit of recognition, I think it's because what I've always tried to do is take a lot of the treasures of Jewish wisdom and Jewish values and bring them to a larger audience.
Is that what made you do Shalom in the Home, the TV reality series? Basically fixing people's problems to some degree?
Look, I'm a grown man, and yet inside me, you may not be able to see it, as still the broken child who stems from a broken home. My parents' divorce really scarred me. And ever since I was a child, I was always thinking through the secret of how do you keep a man and a woman happily under the same roof for the duration of their lives. Shalom in the Home was finally the fruition of that thought. Going into broken families, so many American families have become dysfunctional, and dysfunction becomes a family heirloom, which the children inherit. And it goes on for hundreds of generations until one generation says, we're going to heal ourselves and not going to pass this to our kids. That's really why I did the show, because I don't want kids to have to grow up the way I did. The fact is that divorce has become so rampant in the Western world, and we're so complacent about it, that we don't think it's a big deal. It's a really big deal, and it really scars children. And I was a yo-yo, my mother's house, then I go to my father's house, and all this guilt, as soon as you're really close to your mother, you start feeling, oh my gosh, I don't want my father to feel neglected. And there you are at 10 years old, and you're like Henry Kissinger, you're a diplomat, and you're not supposed to be that. You're supposed to be just yourself. You're supposed to be innocent. So that's why I did Shalom in the Home.
How do you regard the breakdown of communities? And for example, how do you regard Islam in the Muslim world nowadays? It's been very negatively stereotyped.
Well, look, I'm actually, interestingly enough, as an Orthodox Jew, a great champion of Islam. The fact is that the Jewish community has a real debt to the Islamic community, because when we were kicked out of Catholic Spain in 1492, when we were kicked out of Catholic Portugal, I think in 1503, it was the Muslims who took the Jews in. That's why there are Jewish communities in the Islamic world till this very day. The Jewish community of Istanbul dates from then. It was specifically countries not beyond the Ottoman Empire where Jews were tolerated and they were welcomed in. And they paid a jizya. There was a poll tax they paid, but they were never persecuted, and there wasn't a Holocaust in the Islamic world. The fact is that Jews and Muslims have so much in common. And let me just tell you, there isn't a conflict outside of the Middle East. Very often I meet Muslims here in the United States, and my first expression to them is one of sympathy, like just no, people don't think that people, God forbid, look down at you. I honor you for celebrating your faith.
Let me take you back to your childhood. You're born in Los Angeles in California. Correct. Prior to the breakup of your parents, which I'll get onto, what were your earliest memories of that time?
Well, unfortunately, some of my earliest memories is that my parents didn't get along. I don't know, Los Angeles, when I grew up in the 1970s, it didn't make a big impact on me. The city, it didn't seem to have the pace that it does today. Los Angeles has become a very vibrant city. But remember, when I was 8, we moved from Los Angeles because my parents divorced. and we moved to Miami. And I didn't like growing up without my father around. It bothered me tremendously. Every time, remember, we grew up in an Orthodox Jewish community where divorce rates were really low. They were maybe 5 or 10% of the population. So I was one of the only kids whose parents were divorced. And every time the teacher would say, go home and practice this lesson with your father, I would think that, that is so insensitive. But I was the only kid in the class, and they would overlook that. So when I look back at my childhood, I don't remember a particularly happy childhood. I remember the love of my siblings. We're very close. There's 5 of us. Till today, we're best friends. I remember the devotion of my parents and how they tried to guard us from a lot of the pain of their marriage. But, it's impossible. It is what it is.
Did you get much history about your father's roots as an Iranian Jew from Isfahan?
Absolutely. My father has lived in the United States now for 47, 48 years, and yet it's like he's in Iran right now. The culture has remained the most vibrant part of his life, and he's passed it on to us. I love Iranian cuisine. I think it's the best food in the world. My Ashkenazi Australian wife knows how to make khorme sabzi. She's been taught by all my aunts and my grandmother. My father's music is Iranian music. His closest friends were Persian. My father has remained quintessentially Middle Eastern until this very day. And he goes back to Iran. He was just in Iran for the Jewish High Holy Days. He plans to go back for Passover. He remains very connected to the city of Isfahan. He's always telling me stories about what growing up in Isfahan was like.
What about the influences, early influences on your life? Your parents were apart. You said you were a bit of a yo-yo between them. Who were your early influences then?
Well, my parents were strong influences on my life. The yo-yo part, unfortunately, comes from a lot of the custody issues that, of course, are part and parcel of divorce. But the biggest influences, I believe, outside of my parents and immediate family, were teachers who took an interest in me. And particularly, there was one young rabbinical student who I used to participate in after-school activities, and he was about 5 years older than me. And he really saw something in me, and he became like an older brother to me. And it was really due to his influence. His name is Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. He lives in Miami. We're close friends till today. It was due primarily to his influence that I decided to become a rabbi. And he had a formative influence on my life. I dedicated one of my most important books to him. But he changed my life because I never thought I would end up as a rabbi. I'm not from a family of rabbis. I'm really from a family of businessmen.
Your family's gone through quite a lot. Apart from the divorce, you have a gay brother, you have divorced sisters. You've had to deal with a lot of challenges in what is often an intolerant world when it comes to these issues. How do you hold all that together?
Well, look, my gay brother is a very interesting part of my life. I've always believed that in most aspects, my brother is a better human being than I am. He's a better son to his parents. He is a better brother than I am to him. He's an extraordinary person. He has an incredibly compassionate heart. And yet, as Orthodox Jews, we've always had to contend with the fact that his life is outside of biblical law. And the way I've dealt with that, and obviously it made me think a great deal because of how much I love my brother and how close we are. And my take is always this. The Bible has 613 commandments. One is that you should marry and have children, and the other is you should not practice gay sex. I always say to my brother, there's 611 left. That'll keep you pretty busy.
How did you and your wife, Debbie, meet?
Well, my wife is Australian, and I was sent by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who had a worldwide network of yeshivas, Jewish rabbinical seminaries. They would often choose 10 young students to go to distant foreign countries to help resuscitate, rejuvenate the local communities there. And I was one of 10 that was chosen to go to Sydney, Australia. And my wife's parents used to lend us their home to do seminars. I was in charge of Saturday night seminars. We would bring hundreds of people from the community, and we would prepare, the 10 of us, lectures on various themes. I became very close to her parents. At the end of my 2-year stint in Sydney, the rabbi of their synagogue called me and said, you've become so close to the parents, they have a daughter your age, why don't you take her out? I said, sure. I have to say, I recognize the fact that I was quite lonely. I've never stopped being a child of divorce. So when a young, special woman was, when someone said, take her out, I was thrilled. And we got engaged after 3.5 weeks because she was everything that I was looking for. She was incredibly soft and gentle. She was very understanding of me. I think she understood that she was marrying someone who was much more broken than she was. My wife is a very whole person, thank God. She was raised in a very stable environment. She remembers one fight between her parents. I remember one loving moment between my parents. It's what I call a complementary relationship, but she has been my soulmate for 20 years, thank God. She's a remarkable woman.
And you have 9 children. You're blessed with a wonderful family. Yeah. How do you, with all your
a lot of expenses, but worth it, but absolutely worth it.
With all the work you do, the writings, the TV, and everything, how do you hold it all together? How do you hold together such a big family?
You know, I don't think about it. I think I don't believe in being focused on. You know, I'm focused on the process as opposed to the end result. Like I don't sit there thinking. I don't sit there with my wife. Maybe I should. Working out a budget for the year. I have no idea of budgets. I just know I need to make money. So because we have a large family, thank God, and they go to Jewish religious schools, which are not cheap. I know that I have to be very involved in my children's life. I want to be there to read them stories at night. That's where it gets a bit difficult because my particular line of work is such that, I mean, what do? I lecture around the world and I do book tours. A very good friend of mine once said that there's 3 things in life, right? There's your family, there's your career, profession, and then there's your social circle, and one of them has to give. So my wife and I, we have a lot of friends, but we're not very social people, meaning we bring people to our home. We have 30 or 40 friends who join us on Friday night Shabbat meals almost every week. But in terms of going out places, we really try to avoid that because I want to be with the children at night. But I guess the simple answer to your question is I think that we human beings actually, we limit ourselves, we constrain ourselves unnaturally. We really think that we can't do a lot. You know how many people come to me and say, 9 kids, oh my God, I have 1 and I can barely cope. Queen Victoria had 9 children and she ran the largest empire in the history of the world. Yes, she had a lot of help, but she was probably pretty darn busy. She didn't think of herself as being limited, and I try not to think of myself as having those limitations either.
I have many more questions for you. We're going to take a short break. More with Rabbi Shmuley Boteach in just a moment. Stay with us.